My name is Josh Miller. I own Riverstone Kennels, and I've been training gun dogs for more than 16 years. I have field trialed, I've hunt tested, but at the end of the day, I'm a duck hunter. You might find that the duck in our Duck Dogs podcast is spelled uniquely. The UK stands for my British Labs. I love my British Labs. I love what they offer me, both as a part of my family and the high motor in the field. As you're going to find, I have some pretty special dogs. Follow along in our podcast series here as we talk about both in the field hunting and in the field training situations that will hopefully help you progress with your dog at home. Thank you, Eukanuba. Eukanuba Premium Performance Sport 3020. You know, I kind of do the same intro or similar intros every time, but this week I specifically talked to a number of clients that we have transitioned them from a different brand of food to this feed here, and it's just more and more testimonials coming out all the time of how much people love this food, they believe in it, and it's great stuff to hear. So if anyone out there is looking for a high quality premium food to put your dog on, I would highly recommend that. Again, it's Eukanuba Premium Performance Sport 3020 is the blend that I use. Also, thank you to Gun Dog Supply. As you've heard me say in the past, one-stop shop for all of your dog, both hunting and training needs. And as we head into the training season, it's great to know that there's a place with great people, great customer service, and about every product that you could ask for with one click there. So go look them up, gundogsupply.com. So this week, I want to talk about a couple different things. I want to talk about some of the preseason or not even preseason, early season evaluation as training season is kicking in here. Yesterday was the first day that I really got into a real kind of setup, with my dogs, and I have all my advanced handling dogs coming in here in a couple weeks, and so we finally have no snow. It is still very cold. Yesterday, I think, was 30 degrees and 30-mile-an-hour winds, and so it was chilly. But it was fun to get out. It was great to kind of feel like you're getting back in the swing of it. And as I do that, there are a number of things that I'm doing, and so I want to share that stuff with you. And then I have a couple questions. I love that we've been getting a lot of feedback coming in via social media. And so if you guys have topics or have things you want to hear about, go shoot me a message at Riverstone Kennels, either Facebook or Instagram. And I'd say Instagram is probably the easiest way, but Riverstone Kennels, you can shoot me a message there. And I'd love to hear your guys' ideas. And there's a couple here that came through that I think kind of sync together. And so I want to kind of cover those two. And you'll see where I'm going with this as I merge these two questions together. But let me back up and let me talk about my early season work and kind of what I'm doing. So first off, Sitka Gear saved us yesterday. Dave, if you've been around the kennel, Dave. Dave has worked for me training for over 8 years now, and great guy. Again, if you've been around the kennel, you know him, you probably love him. And this was the first year that he was geared up with Sitka. And yesterday was the first day that we were really, again, out hitting it hard, and it was just nasty out. And he made the comment, he's like, man, like, this stuff is legit, So shout out to Sitka, who's a sponsor of this podcast, sitkagear.com. If you're looking for anything, again, hunting or training, it helps us out every day. So go check that out. But, even though it's not ideal weather, we finally are no snow, no ice, the things that at least up here in the north, we kind of anxiously wait for. These are the days we really count down because we've been looking at white stuff since usually November. And so by this time of year, here in, I guess we're early April now. Crazy that already the first quarter of 2021 is gone. But it's we get excited and we get out there and we start getting these sets out. And So yesterday, I had specifically my personal dogs I'm going to talk about because, I could talk about some of the training dogs, but I really don't have my big dogs, and I call them my big dogs, my advanced handling dogs. They come in here in a couple weeks, and I usually push it out till then because I don't know what the weather is going to be doing. And so mid-April is usually when I get them in, and then we'll go through a summer program together. But, it's important for me to get my dogs out there as soon as I can because, we've got hunt tests to prepare for. I want to, knock that rust off. I want to, get them, going as soon as I can because I have the luxury, to do that. And that's always something that if you're training your dog at home, I talk about that, with my clients all the time. Sometimes my clients are a little bashful with me, rather, when they're like, I'm going to train, I want to take, the next steps at home, or I want to train, the dog myself. I think that's fantastic. I think there's a lot of luxuries that you afford yourself when you do that. One is no timelines. I mean, we've talked about that, I think, on this podcast before. Timelines for me are my absolute 100% worst enemy. And, for my personal dogs, that's kind of the luxury I have. I can start whenever, the weather affords me to. I can not have a timeline. I can take my time and work through things the right way. And I really like that. And so as we get going with things, I, again, have hunted my dogs a lot over the hunting season and naturally have created some bad habits, as we've talked about. Again, hunting season, it is just going to unravel, some of training season, which is funny because we train for hunting season, right? But I want to talk to you about a specific example that came up yesterday that, I think will speak to this, kind of see where I'm going. So, Bud. Again, for those of you that follow Riverstone Kennels, of Bud. He's a fantastic dog. He has produced some fantastic puppies. And he's one of those dogs that I would say, finished fairly easily. He was very natural in a lot of what he wanted to do. He wanted to work with me. He went through his hunt tests extremely fast. He's hunter retriever champion at 2 years old, and did a lot of great things. So he is a finished dog. But again, finished doesn't mean you're done. And so as we went into yesterday, I just set up a couple what I consider fairly basic but 120 to 150 yard blinds. Nothing crazy. We don't have any real water work. Ice is just coming off, and so water is extremely cold. I'm not going to push the dogs through that stuff quite yet. The terrain, there's really not a ton of cover because the grasses haven't completely grown up yet. They're just, I consider this fairly basic. And as we went through it, I have, some little things that kind of come up, like, I think Strike needs to, sharpen up his lines a little bit. He was a little, he wasn't really wavering crazy amount, but he was wavering more than I wanted him to. I'd like him a little sharper there. Clyde was very excited. You could tell he was really, kind of trying to evaluate, the place and the setting that we were. And, he was very, I'd say edgy just because he's had, over a month off. And, Brock was Brock and, did very well. But something came up with Bud that I think was really interesting. And he's never done this before. And so this is something new that we're going to work over together. But I would line Bud up, and Bud has always been a great line runner. He's always been, very driven, very focused. And I'd line him up, tell him dead, back, boom, he'd take off. And about 35 yards, 40 yards, he'd pop. And what I mean by pop, if you don't know that terminology, is he would spin, turn around, and look for a cast from me. And, that from a competing standpoint is very undesirable. You want them to run that confident line as far as either they run into, where they're supposed to be running to as far as that blind, or they hear that whistle, right? And then that's when you want them to turn and take that cast. And so I want to talk about what created this and kind of how this came up, because I think I always look at in the back of my mind, okay, so what if someone that didn't know what it was that was going on here, what if they saw this, right? And I think a lot of times in a situation like that, someone will look at that and be like, yeah, I thought this was a finished dog, right? And he is. Rewind. Hunting season. How did hunting season create this problem for me? Well, when I look back and I reflect on the hunts specifically that Bud just happened to be in, he had one thing that happened a lot. And I would even argue two things. The first thing that I think is maybe not the argument I'm going to make here is he had a lot of birds that were right in the decoys. He hunted a lot of timber situations, which timber situations just are close shots. They're usually short retrieves. I think you could argue sometimes that you at times you don't even need a dog in the timber because everything's so close. But I think it's a factor, but I don't think it's the factor. Here's what I think it is more than anything, is that Bud also had a lot of cripples that he was sent on that would dive on him and would pop up in certain areas. So here's what would happen. Birds come in, boom, 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 4, 5, 6 fall. We go start picking them up. Well, with the cripples especially, and I try to, if possible, I try to have, this is one of the reasons I want all my dogs to be completely steady. I like to have people finish those birds off while they're on the water. And just so it doesn't create, these crippled bird situations that these dogs have to work extra hard for. Sometimes it's fun to watch and all that kind of stuff, but we wanted to dispatch the birds, quickly and efficiently. Plus, it just makes it to where, that bird could potentially not get away. But for whatever reason, just the situations that we were in, Bud was in a lot of crippled bird situations. And so what would happen is he would get out to the spot that bird was, and that bird would dive, and he'd spin, and he'd look, and he'd look, and look. And I can recall on multiple occasions where that bird would pop up when I would see it anyway, 15, 20 yards away, and Bud'd still spin around. And so he would look back at me, and I would give him a cast over to that spot because I'm trying to pick this bird up as quickly as possible. We've got more birds coming in, more birds working. People are anxious. I'm trying to, pick these birds up quickly. And the quickest way is when he turns to look at me, if I see it go, over, back, and whatever it is, get him on that bird. Here's the problem it created, though, is that now I'm seeing that he's, again, early part of training season, he's now going out on those blinds going, okay, I've hit that, let's just say 40-yard mark. I haven't run into anything. Dad will tell me where it is. Boom, turn around. Well, again, I want you confidently running that line. And so what I'm going to have to do is I'm just going to have to, I don't think it's going to take much, but it's just going to be that confidence building of taking that line, carrying that line, because, I want you to carry that line, 200-300 yards, not 40. So, this is just one of those examples where you take, again, a very finished dog, but hunting season still throws those curveballs and those wrenches in that we have to work on to get over. And this is why I've talked about so often that these dogs aren't robots, that you are never completely finished. That's why I've really, kind of beat that saying that I had come up with, which is, don't, fall in love with the process, not the result. Because, the finished result is never going to stay the finished result, right? There's always going to be the process you're going to continue on. So fall in love with it because you're not going to get away from it. And if you embrace it, I could have been frustrated with Bud. I could have been upset at Bud. And instead I said, well, that's on me. That was my fault. Now let's get over it. Again, I don't think it's going to take much, but I really think that, life is, I've heard this saying too, life is, 10% of what happens and 90% of how you respond to it. I think you can say the same about dog training. How you respond to these situations, I think more times than not, dictates if you have a successful outcome or one that is very, at times, unsuccessful. Patience is key. How you handle things is key. But the knowledge of how to handle those things is also a big part of that. And so I'm looking at Bud and I'm kind of enjoying it, which I know is kind of interesting to hear because, this would be considered maybe less than an ideal situation just because, we have something to work on that he was already very good at. But, I'm in love with the process. So, so now I want to go into a couple questions that came up, and I think these two really synergize together, and I think you'll see where they work into each other. So the first one is, what makes a special dog? And I love this question because I don't think there's one real specific answer to it. I love this question because the answer to this question is going to be different no matter who you ask it to. And I think what is really neat about a question like this is that I think it's dog to dog. So, I look at my own dogs. I mean, I've got a lot of great dogs, but there are certain dogs that are very special to me. Like you've heard me talk about Brock. Brock is very special for a lot of reasons, but I think more than anything was the work that he and I did together and how he came into my life was right when I lost Easton, which was my first very special dog. And so he was kind of stepping into a hole in my heart that I had. And I think that's one of the many reasons, but one of the big reasons why he is so special to me. And everyone is going to have a different, opinion of this, so you may have people talk about, a nose. You may have people talk about trainability. You may have people talk about drive. But at the end of the day, what is important to you? There's a lot of people that a special dog to them, and we have clients all the time say, "Oh, this is the best dog I've ever had. This is, I love this dog more than any other dog I've ever had." Right? And that's all great, but very few times it's because that dog can, go around a 300-yard blind. Very few times it's because they can go, walk through a finished or a master level test. So very few times it's because they can go win a field trial. It's what is unique to them about that dog. A lot of times it's the family aspect that we see. Now, of course, that dog has to have it in the field because very few people are going to say that they have a special dog when you take it in the field and, it walks at your heels, doesn't want to retrieve. Very few people are saying that is their special dog. So they still have to have that. But to me, special goes so much deeper than that. And there's so much more that we could talk about that defines special. One thing that I always talk about is I feel like these special dogs or these dogs that are special to you is very, I'd say, time-driven in your life. So I'm going to use Easton and Brock. Easton was very special in my life because of where I had him in my life. He was a dog that, I would say pushed me, but at the same time was super easy to train. I didn't know anything when I started training Easton. Nothing. I read books and watched DVDs, but as we all know, that doesn't give you a true knowledge on most things, right? I'm not going to go, read a book and watch a DVD on how to be an NFL head coach and then all of a sudden go coach the next, week. I mean, that doesn't happen. And so he was that dog that made this fun for me, and he got me into this. And as I've talked about in the past, I wouldn't have what I have today, and I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing today if it wasn't for him. Incredible that a dog can have that kind of an impact on your life. I wouldn't have probably some of the absolute closest friends that I have today if it wasn't for that dog starting me down this path. He was put in my life at a time that I needed him in my life. That's what made him very special. Brock is very special because of the relationship we with what we have, he and I. He is also very special because of the things that he has accomplished. He's also very special because of the puppies he's produced, right? He's very special for a lot of things, but I would say if you flip-flop those two dogs in my life, with when they intersected with me, so if I had Brock when I had Easton and Easton when I had Brock, may not be the same impact. They may not be that same dog to me. And so I think special is just relative. I mean, what is it that you look for? What is it that is desirable to you? I think that's what's special. And the next question, which is, and you'll see where I piggyback off this, comes from Dan Courtney. Dan is a guy that I've actually got to know a little bit over just over social media. He's one of our followers from Ireland, and it's always kind of fun seeing what he's doing over there. And he's always looking at what we're doing here, and he follows the podcast here. So shout out to Dan. But Dan asked me a question which I thought was really interesting, which is he asked me to go over what makes Brock such a great dog. And I think this kind of comes from, because it was during this whole time, Brock's on the cover of Wildfowl magazine. Brock has a feature done with him on Sitka. Again, sponsor of the show, but Sitka does a feature about me and him. Brock is on the cover of Gundog Grind Coffee. Brock is on the cover of Sport Dog E-Colors. Brock is everywhere. And you can do ads. I mean, shoot, I keep coming up with things in my head, like Brock's face is all over the place. And so I think anytime you see that much of a dog, I think it's a great question to ask. Like, what does make this dog so good? And we could talk about the accomplishments that he has. We could talk about the titles that he has. We could talk about some of these major retrieves that he's made. We can talk about the people that he's impressed in the field. We could talk about all that stuff. But when I look at a dog and I say, that dog has something extra, or that dog, this is what makes this dog so good, it's oftentimes the things that you just can't teach. Because if you can teach it to them, I mean, we can make a dog that doesn't have something look as if they have it through teaching it to them. Right? If a dog doesn't have a natural mouth, we go through the train retrieve and teach them how to use their mouth. That dog doesn't mark very well at all. We teach them how to mark, and we go through. There's a lot of things that we can teach a dog, but you can't teach drive. How much that dog wants to go, the motor that the dog has. You can't teach composure, and oftentimes the drive and the composure clash. Right? You can't teach that. You can't teach the heart, what that dog is willing to do, what that dog is willing to trust you with. There's so many things you can't teach. And when those boxes start getting checked off, that this dog has it, this dog has it, this dog has it, I think that's what ends up making a dog like Brock so good. He has a lot of those things. But I oftentimes like to talk about the X factor, because I think this is where these good dogs and these great dogs separate themselves. And I wish I could tell you what the X factor is. And if you've spent time around dogs, especially gun dogs in the field, you know what I'm talking about. Some dogs just have something. You can't put your finger on it. You can't say it is this. But there's something there that is just different. It just makes them jump out at you. It makes them remember. It makes you remember them, rather. It makes... I can't tell you what it is. But every so often, and I think I'm blessed because I get to see so many dogs that I've seen, probably more dogs that have this than most, just because the number of dogs I see in a year. But every once in a while, there's a dog that's like, golly, like he might be on the same training course as everybody else. He might be doing the same drill everybody else is doing. He may be at the same level that everybody else is doing. Not elevating, not standing out, but there's something special. There's something there that you can't put your finger on, but there's something. I think those are the dogs that you end up keying on going, this dog is really good. This dog is, and I think as time goes on, especially if you devote your time to that dog, they blossom into something that is more than maybe what every other dog that was in at that same level turns into. Now, I'll tell you what's heartbreaking for me, selfishly. It's heartbreaking because most of the dogs that I have ever had over time in for training, the people that own that dog don't have a desire, for whatever reason, to go on and do further training with them. It's like, no, I hunt 3 times a year, and I just wanted to be, I wanted to ride in the back seat of my truck, and I wanted to be my buddy, I wanted to go on pontoon rides, I want to go pick up birds, but I don't want to be away from him for any period of time to get the potential out of him. And I just sit there and I'm just like, it just kills me because I know what that dog could be. And then more times than not, you get the guy that's like, I want this dog to be special, and the dog that he has just is not. You can't teach that. They have it or they don't. And so I think why I linked these two topics together is that a good dog, in my opinion, isn't necessarily special from the standpoint of there's that extra level, that extra gear, that one extra thing you can't teach. There's right? But special is relative, like we talked about. Brock is a very good dog, and to me, an extremely special dog on a lot of levels. But maybe if I don't own him, maybe he's not as special as what I think he is, right? Maybe the owner that has him, again, very hypothetical because it's not going anywhere. But maybe if someone else owned him, maybe they wouldn't love him like I love him. Maybe they wouldn't have spent that extra time, training and developing, to get him to where he is. Maybe they wouldn't have, spent all this one-on-one time with him in the field. Maybe there's so many things. So yeah, to me, Brock's special. And I think if you at home, I think if you have a dog, that dog at least probably on some level is special to you too. And so, good, special, great. There's a lot that goes into all of this, right? But what I think is that when we look and evaluate these dogs, there's some boxes that you rarely check, and sometimes you don't even know why you check them. The X factor. It's a big part of it. I want to thank Lucky Duck. Lucky Duck crates. If you guys have not seen the Lucky Duck crate, the Lucky Duck kennel, do so. 5-star crash test rated. It's a great kennel. It's what all my dogs ride in when they're not in the trailer. And I just think it's an awesome product. So go check it out. Lucky Duck. Go to luckyduck.com. So thank you guys for kind of spending some time with me here today as I go over just some early season stuff. I think as we get further into this, we will see more training situations. Again, we're kind of ramping up that season. More training situations, more things that'll come up that will I'll jump on here and talk about. And I think it'll be fun. This is kind of what I've looked forward to this whole time. When I started this was this training season, when these situations come up, that I can go, aha. People should know about this. We should talk about this. So you appreciate you guys following along. Again, if you have topic ideas, I want to hear them because I think it just gives me that little extra fuel and motivation to sit down and do these. And I think hopefully added something to this episode here. So hope you guys have a great week, and we'll talk to you soon. Thanks for listening. Be sure to follow us on Facebook and Instagram. Leave us a review on iTunes. And a special thank you to DUK because without them, we couldn't do what we do here, bringing this information to you.